Picture this. It is late 1960. You've lived in the remote highlands for most, if not all, of your life, and your village is lucky enough to have a railway station. You want to take the stopping train to the city, and usually the stopping train is hauled by a wheezing black steam locomotive that looks like it's about to fall apart. But instead of the usual hoot hoot, you hear an unfamiliar honking, followed by a growl. The locomotive rounding the curve is a sleek yet minute thing, immaculate and green. Despite only being a few weeks old, the machine has worked in Scotland its entire life, and unbeknownst to you, it would spend its entire life there. Built by the Birmingham Railway Carriage and Wagon Company, and eventually divided into two main classes, the locomotive is a Type 2 diesel, though as it and its sisters would become the familiar locomotives for the lighter trains in the Highlands, they would become known, collectively, as McRats. When British Railways launched their revised diesel pilot scheme in 1957, they envisioned four power categories. Four brackets, so to speak, ranging from Type 1 to Type 4. These types would, as per their power classification, fill very much the same roles as the steam locomotives which preceded them. Type 1s, like this English electric Type 1, would mainly concern themselves with branch line freights. Type 2s would then be the equivalent of a large branch line steam locomotive. Think along the lines of a Class 4 tank engine. However, as this is British Railways we're talking about, the pilot scheme eventually catered more towards the perceived needs of the old railways that had been amalgamated into the nationalised company. The southern region, previously the Southern Railway, had no need for massive diesel powerhouses because they were intent on electrification. Meanwhile, in Scotland it was vital for locomotives intended to haul passenger trains to be able to heat the old pre- and post-nationalisation carriages. But the main problem this presented was that BR commissioned way too many locomotive builders for their take on a diesel loco within any of the given power brackets. The Birmingham Railway Carriage and Wagon Company, a firm located in Smethwick, although known more widely for their luxurious carriages and London tube stock, also built four types to be trialled on British Railways. Three of those diesel locos would have a very identifiable family look to them, with rounded shapes and two divided front windows. These were their Type 2 and Type 3. Wait, didn't I say they produced three? With the fourth and largest pilot locomotive being DO260 Lion, a one-off prototype intended as the BCWC's Type 4. Whilst Lion was destined to remain the sole member of its kind, the Type 2s and 3s were ordered in batches of 20 and 45 respectively. And although there were complications with the Type 3s to be sent to the southern region, the 20 Type 2s were delivered between June 1958 and May 1959. The Birmingham Works installed their new Type 2s with 6 LDA 28 power units, which themselves were products of the Swiss Sulzer Company. The unit could produce 1,160 horsepower, which was on the lower end of the Type 2 power grade, as Type 2 covered anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 horsepower. Test runs out of Doncaster revealed that a more powerful power unit would not only grant a higher top speed, but also a higher amount of powered horses. The first Birmingham Type 2s, numbers D5300 to D5319, were sent to London. There they would eventually be tested alongside the North British Locomotive Works Type 2, a loco which itself was a total failure. Also in 1958, the third member of the BCWC's Type 2s was sent to Scotland, where it holds several services both passenger and freight for testing purposes. It must have been a case of being at the right place at the right time, because no sooner did the Scottish region take a liking to this machine, where the other Birmingham Type 2s moved to Scotland in 1959. Turns out they were too heavy for London's city-widened lines, meaning the list of potential London jobs for these Type 2s was suddenly a lot shorter. The second batch of Birmingham Type 2s were delivered straight to Scotland, and between an event which saw a few of the Scottish Type 2s heading back to London to cover for failed diesel multiple units, they more or less stayed in Scotland. And in Scotland, these little diesel locomotives proved to be ideal for the lighter surfaces out of Edinburgh, where most of the Scottish batch would be concentrated during those early years. Being tiny diesel locomotives, only some 50 foot long, did not hold them back from doing great things. When ex-London and North Eastern Railway A46009 Union of South Africa failed with the Newcastle-bound express on October the 28th, 1959, it was D5331 which came to the rescue. Now remember when I said that the operators would have preferred the Birmingham Type 2s to have a slightly more powerful power unit? Well, in July 1961, the first of these operated Type 2s, D5347 and D5348, were delivered to the Scottish region, finding a home at Glasgow Eastfield. And whilst all of these Type 2s were pretty much unanimously liked by Scottish crews, they weren't jacks of all trade. On the Aberdeen Road between Aberdeen and Edinburgh they proved troublesome, and it only took for the English Electric Type 4's massive 16-wheeled locomotives for the Birmingham Type 2s to be withdrawn from these services in 1961. What the smaller Type 2s were great at though was dieselising routes such as the lines to the Kyle of Lochalsh and the West Highland lines in Mallaig. And some of you might be wondering why I concentrate so much on the Scottish part of the BCWC's Type 2s, when the operated ones also work the Midland Main Line, for instance. Well, to me anyway, the Scottish part of their story has the greatest impact on their legacy, rightfully so. It's not like with the New York Central Hudsons, where 11 members of the class seemingly define the whole presence those locomotives have in the enthusiast zeitgeist. You have to remember that the story of most small diesel locomotives is more or less the same, well, British ones at least, where they start out as locomotives intended for light passenger duties, but eventually ended up as freight locomotives due to the influx of DMUs in the mid to late 1960s. And for the BCWC's Type 2s, which were to be reclassified as classes 26 and 27 under the 1974 TOPS classification scheme, you have to keep in mind that they were sent to take over services which had, shortly before their arrival, been hauled by 440 and 260 steam engines. Really, these two classes of diesel locomotives are the evolutionary next step along the same path that brought us the Great North of Scotland Railway Vs and LNER K4s. And unlike some people who I'm only legally not calling ignorant, my interest in the characteristic Scottish railway does not stop when the machine at the front of the train stops having a chimney. As steam traction was phased out in Scotland, the soon-to-be Class 26 and 27 were getting more and more restrictive jobs, their turns on passenger duties eventually falling into the hands of DMUs. Although, like I said, they would remain pretty much synonymous with the Kyle and West Highland lines when passenger trains along those parts of the network were still loco-hauled. It was actually this association with the Scottish lines which garnered both classes the nickname of McRat, which by itself is a reference to Class 25, the Darlington Type 2, which were nicknamed Rats, due to the 327 members of the class being so prolific across England and Wales. Only natural, the Scottish equivalent, has a typically Scottish prefix to the name. Definitely the heaviest of the duties entrusted upon the higher-rated Class 27 specifically were the Glasgow-Edinburgh push-pull services between 1971 and 1980. Trains so heavy and frequent that the reliability of the Class 27 tanked when compared to the older and lower-rated Class 26. No doubt this sudden dip in their performance and the influx of Class 37s and 47s was a major contributor to the last withdrawals of the 27s in 1987. The class eking out their days on semi-fasts, that is a stopping train that skips a few stations, as well as freight. Perhaps most telling of the condition of the Class 27 was one of their final rail tours. March 14th, 1987 saw 27046 and 27049 working the Tyne Valley Express for the Scottish Railway Preservation Society, from Falkirk over the border to Newcastle. But 27046 failed, resulting in 27049 mustering all of its strength to drag the whole train by itself to Newcastle, which I think speaks volumes about the McRats. Even at their lowest, they kept their expresses running. Other than a loan withdrawal in 1966, the Class 27 had a good run. And when you look at the intensive jobs entrusted upon them, it becomes clear why the older, less powerful Class 26 survived for longer. Their story very much echoes the life of contemporary small British mainline diesel locos. The Class 26, whilst not totally abolished from working passenger trains, were mostly considered freight engines later in life. In fact, the first 7 Class 26s were given slow speed control for working non-stop coal trains to Cockenzie Power Station, the slow speed allowing the locomotives to unload their trains on the move, this system being known as merry-go-round. When the Class 27s had been fully withdrawn, 33 Class 26s remained. They had all been refurbished, and while they were intended to last into the 2000s, accidents and dwindling duties saw withdrawal commence in 1990. The last 12 members all being withdrawn in October 1993. Among these last withdrawals of a McRat was the very first one, D5300, since renumbered 26007. In the face of the 26's ultimate demise, she was painted back into BR green with yellow warning panels and headcoat discs, and named Eastfield, in honour of the depot which had provided many Class 26s and 27s with a home, also to close around the same time. Funnily enough, that depot was rebuilt. 21 McRats have survived into preservation, and they are as popular as ever. Featured in this video are D5314 and D5370, a Class 26 and 27 respectively. Both are owned by the Caledonian Railway Diesel Group, and both are kept in their as-built condition for the most part. 26007 Eastfield is also one of the survivors, and at the time of writing this, is running on the Ecclesbourne Valley Railway. Like the steam locos they replaced, the McRats became more loved as they got older. As for me, favourite diesels, for sure. For once, I've got nothing to say as per the production of this TGL, but I did want to direct everyone to the link to the Caledonian Railway, the CR Diesel Group, and the Ecclesbourne Valley Railway. Link below. Cheerio!